Hey everybody, it's Yusuf, Sophia, and Rusty for CraftyAcuity.org, yusuf.crow@gmail.com for commissions. How you guys doing? Today's artwork is entitled Late Night Acupuncture. It has Tenchu from Tenchu 3, or Tenchu Wrath of the Ninja Assassin Killer Stealth, whatever it's called. Tenchu is the extra character in Tenchu. Usually the Tenchu game has 3 characters. The first 2 that were in the first game, Ayame and Rikimaru, and an extra playable guy who has a considerably shorter campaign. Tenchu here is a doctor during the day and an assassin at night. Thus, he walks around using acupuncture needles in order to heal people and to heal people, if you know what I'm saying. So there was this very popular artist in comic book circles named Afua Richardson, especially in Atlanta. In some of the art hangouts that we have on Facebook, she posts a little bit of her process, which usually seems to be her doing the comic book art more like a painting. Usually I do it straight up comic book style where I draw the outlines and then I just draw solid lines and then color in the solid lines. So I tried to do what it looked like she was doing. Now, I don't know exactly what she does. I just kind of know from the hundreds of work in progress pictures that she kind of throws up there. You start to put them together after a while. Another thing I did that kind of opposes the way I work is that I came up with the pose first, and then I kind of came up with the concept of the artwork. Usually, I have a concept in my head, and I try to make the poses shape to the concept. For instance, the last artwork I did for Spider-Man was Spider-Man dodging Rhino's charge. Or the one I did for Rikimaru with Tenchu 3 was just him kind of showing up and then seeing that it is Onikage standing there again when he's supposed to be dead. He just keeps appearing out of nowhere, and for a ninja, that's gotta suck. You know what I'm saying? He's just being a ninja. He's the stealth assassin. All of a sudden, he gets crept up on by this magician Onikage guy with a burning forearm. Anyway, after I spent all that time trying to use my brain for the painting and all that stuff, kind of got a little lazy and switched the whole medium over to Photoshop so that I could manipulate my artwork a little bit more than actually draw it. Usually I try to use Manga Studio for pretty much the whole thing. I don't like jumping back and forth between programs, but whenever I get a little weird about the artwork and how I'm gonna do stuff and then start taking photo stylistic shortcuts, that's when I start using Photoshop to try and manipulate my way out of a problem. The trick is, which is very hard, is once you switch over to Photoshop and start moving things around, it's very difficult to make everything seem like you drew it. So you somehow have to blend in the stuff that you drew with the stuff that you're photo manipulating. If you kind of photo bash some pictures and then try to put your artwork over the pictures you photo bashed, it's very difficult because your artwork has to look pretty real. Like, you have to take other photos, bash those photos, and then add your own artwork over the photos, or you have to take the photos as a reference and then be very detailed, or you have to take the stuff that you photo bashed and somehow dumb it down to the level of your actual artwork ability. It makes it really difficult on a whole new level. Also, I had a little problem looking up the Japanese walls that I was looking for. You know, those walls that have paper in them that people just kind of bust through on the back end and pull somebody in, you know. Those Japanese walls where somebody's hiding and listening, and the ninja kind of just, or the samurai looks to the side and throws their sword at the paper wall, and all of a sudden the sword sticks into the wall, and then blood comes squirting out on the paper, and then the guy just falls through, you know. Those walls are called shoji walls. Shoji or shoji. I guess there's no other way to say it. S-H-O-J-I, shoji. Also, I don't usually draw out the silhouettes of my characters, you know. Usually just make another layer and then put the marching ants around the character, color it in black, and then manipulate the black so it looks like a shadow. Unless the shadow is kind of facing in a direction that wouldn't lend to the copying standard, then I'd have to kind of draw the shadow in myself. But normally I just photo manipulate the shadow and then just kind of add things to it to kind of give it an extra dimension. In this shadow, I just kind of turned the samurai shadow sideways, but then I felt like it still looked a little flat, so I tried to add more dimension to the shoulder and stuff to make it look, you know, like he was sitting at an angle or standing at an angle. Now here's an interesting thing I've noticed when I paint things. When I did the Ricky Maru artwork, which I painted the background but did the characters in my normal comic book drawings, the background that I painted was a little bit difficult, you know, because I had to try and form a picture the whole time I was trying to actually execute the picture. You know what I'm saying? Like if you wanted to make an object and in a room, you would have to like kind of loosely draw everything and then try to pull it together towards the end. And I found that it's very difficult when you have a lot of objects that you're trying to put in a painting to keep everything together in your head, because at the last minute all the stuff starts to come to fruition. When you lightly sketch things out in comic book style and make strong, bold lines, everything seems to come to fruition then. The only thing that really happens is that you just up the quality of it by adding color. In this case, if you want to take some comic book art and you want to draw a whole bunch of things in a room, maybe pack the room with as many things as you possibly can, it's much easier to do because you sort of understand the spatial relationship between the objects. However, when you paint things, if you want to make a room full of painted stuff, that makes it much more difficult. Which is why sometimes I feel that people who paint things only have maybe one or two subjects. Maybe there's like a small background. It's very rare that you see some painted artwork that is like a complete scene with a lot of stuff going on in it. It's very difficult to plan that far ahead without drawing out a lot of things, at least from my perspective. The thing that's supposed to catch your eye is all of the intricacies and the randomness of the paint strokes and how all the randomness turns into one complete picture that you drew or you made as a painting. If the painting looked too smooth, it would look a little hokey, like somebody didn't do it by hand, even though most people are just doing their paintings on Photoshop, right? Because they have to make special brushes to kind of simulate the brush style that they would paint with if they had regular paints. But not many painters actually know how to paint on a real canvas if they're like professionals at Photoshop. It's just very difficult to translate those two things. Anyway, I don't know how painters do it. I mean, ever since I was little, I've been taught to color inside the lines. There's no lines to color inside, man. That makes it very interesting how they make it happen. But I guess, you know, not having to draw as much stuff as somebody who actually draws the lines and does line work probably equals it out. I mean, every time I try to paint something out, it's because I'm trying to learn how to skip steps in my artwork. You know, instead of like lining things out very carefully, it's a little bit nicer to try and just kind of make stuff up and skip those steps. But man, that's really hard. Anyway, back to the actual piece of artwork. I think that I did a pretty decent job at the artwork. The action line goes up, around, and towards the point where Tenchu is about to stab this guy with the needle, and it kind of, hopefully, a lot of the motion brings your eye to the needle eventually, because the needle is very small. It was pretty hard to try and pull your brain into where the needle was. I need to do some work on facial recognition because I can recognize faces right off the bat, but I have a hard time trying to translate that into an actual face on a piece of paper. I mean, it's very difficult for you to take different types of, like, you can basically break a face up into shapes, and everybody's face is a bunch of shapes, and they're all connected together in a certain way that gives you the recognition of their face. You know what I mean? So the only problem is that somehow you're supposed to take that face, those shapes, break those shapes down, and then reorganize them on a piece of paper the same way they would be in the picture had the person not been looking slightly to the side or something like that. So that person would be the same amount of recognizable as they would be if they were looking at you straight forward. That's very difficult. I think that's why a lot of painters use references and just kind of repeat studies and things. It takes all the guesswork out of trying to redraw the character. Anyway, that's all I got. You know, less talk about my actual artwork, more waxing philosophical about the differences between painting a picture and doing it comic book style, you know? So thank you very much. You know, hit the like button on this if you liked it. Be sure to head over to my other channel, Dad's Free Time Classic Gaming, and check out the Let's Play of Tenchu. Please check out the Let's Play of everything else, you know. I'm quite the character, I hear. And please check out other speed paints if you got a chance. I mean, we're getting quite high in the number here, so. Whoop-de-whoop, Free Mac Martin. Peace.